y'all, it's Hope at Crafty Hope, and welcome to day 32 of Icad. Um, Icad means Index Card a Day, which is a challenge from Tammy Garcia of Daisy Yellow. She has some themes and prompts to help you if you need it to decorate your index card for 61 days. My friend Nina Fickett also has some mixed media Icad prompts, which are a lot of fun too if you want to play along with those. Both sets of those prompts are completely optional, but today I am using both of them. So let me tell you what the prompts are. And the Daisy Yellow prompt is Sky, and the Mixed Media Icad prompt from Nina is Vintage Text. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you also that I have pre-recorded this video. I am currently out of town and didn't want to not have a video up for y'all, and also didn't want to be playing catch up when I get back from out of town. I'm going to be pretty exhausted from the convention I'm going to, but I'll be having a lot of fun too. So, for Sky, when I saw Sky, of course I thought like clouds and things like that, but I thought sky blue. I was like, that should be pretty easy. I'll put some sky blue on here, and it took me a minute to find some. I've got a set that's a sample of the Master's Touch paint, and there was one that was sky blue, so I pulled it out. And then for the vintage text prompt from Nina, I was like, oh, I've got all kinds of vintage books and things like that. I'll just pull a phrase out of there. So that's what I'm gonna do. So the first thing I do with these cards generally is do a bunch of collage. I am trying to work through a couple of scrap boxes and get rid of some scraps because I have lots of amazing papers. But, it feels, I don't know. It feels bad to create more scraps when I've already got so many scraps. So I'm trying to waste not, want not, and use this challenge as a way to work through some of these scraps. So this also helps bulk up these cards a little bit because index cards nowadays, y'all, are flimsy. I don't know, the ones I remember from high school were pretty like cardstocky, and these are, I don't know, pretty flimsy. I think the set that I actually have are a little bit thicker than some of the ones you can find nowadays because I think I bought them at a thrift store. So, all right, so I have collaged out all of that, and I'm going to go ahead and put some of that sky blue on there. I am putting 3 little blobs and then wetting my paintbrush a bit and going to try to just spread it out around on the card. I'm not really digging it. I decide to get that paint really wet and maybe do some splatters here in a second. This card really surprised me. It is not my usual style. It doesn't have a whole lot of 3D elements to it in the end. It's kind of odd. But the texture that I put on there, because I put several pieces of like different thicknesses and types of paper on there, that they all soak up everything a little bit differently and have weird angles and edges, and so it's gonna take a turn here. Yeah, so I got that blue on there, I splattered it, and y'all, it wasn't, I needed this to be a little more cohesive. So I've grabbed some Lucas paint, not Payne's Gray, Lucas acrylic paint in titanium white, and I'm using a dry brush and going over all of this card. I was kind of thinking any of that blue that was on there that might still be wet might blend a little bit. It doesn't. I dried it really well, and it's fine because it adds to some of the stuff that's going on in the background. And that pink piece of cardstock that's up at the top of that, and it's not cardstock, it's scrapbook paper. It ends up being very purple, and later on when I looked at this card later, I was like, when did I put purple on this card? And I had to remember that it was that pink piece of scrapbook paper. Anyway, so I got that white paint all over it, and I'm going to dry this and decide it's got, I don't know, I felt like scribbling. So I grabbed this needle point. It's a Pentel Energel pen. It's like a needle fine point. It's 0.3 millimeter, something like that. And I'm just scribbling. It felt good. It just needed something on there. And then I decide that I really wanted to pick up some of the texture that was on that card. So I've grabbed my cup of dried up instant coffee. I've put quite a bit of water in it so that I can just pick it up and move it all over this card. And you can see how it's picking up the texture and the edges of all the different papers on there. And that it's one of those things I haven't been able to get ink to do that I can get coffee to do. It's one of the reasons I like using the coffee. And when I pulled out my sky blue, I found that I had this Posca paint pen in a color that looked really similar to that sky blue, at least the cap did. So I grabbed it thinking I can do some mark making too if I don't like the blue, which like you saw, I covered it up. So I'm just doing some tiny little marks all over this card. Mostly I'm staying in the areas where the coffee is. And I'm going to look at the card here. And as I'm looking at it, it feels very industrial to me. Something about it, the scribbles, the chaos, the smoky darkness, the little dots I'm doing start to look almost like windows and skyscrapers. And so I start to think, what if I made this a skyline? And that would go with the sky prompt. And so I grabbed my Stabilo, all in black here, and I'm just going to draw kind of a loose skyline-ish shape, y'all. I live in a small town. I don't go to big cities much, and I don't, I like my slow country living. I'm not, I go into the city, which the closest city to me is Mobile. The bigger cities near me are going to be New Orleans or Atlanta, 6 hours away. And so those are the two big cities near me. And, they make me a little crazy when I go. I enjoy going because I can get a lot more culture and art and things like that in those places that we don't get here. But yeah, the city intimidates me a little. But I did draw, like I said, it felt very cityscape-ish and skyline. So I'm activating that Stabilo, and I'm trying to keep the darkening inside the shape of the buildings I've made, so that it kind of gives it the shading on the inside. And so I thought that was pretty great. I'm going to dry it. And then I go, and I had looked at a couple pieces of vintage book paper, and I couldn't find a sentiment. So I went and pulled out these two really old, definitely vintage. Vintage is only 25 years or older. These are like way old. And I flipped through them until I finally found in one of them a phrase that said, "A wild and passionate longing seized her." And I think, y'all, I've been rewatching Sex and the City lately. The old HBO, not old, but, that HBO series. And I just started rewatching it. I think maybe having the city on there, this phrase, wild and passionate longing seized her, really felt kind of right for the city. So I'm sticking that down with my Oohoo. And I looked at it for a while thinking maybe I would frame it up with something, and changed my mind and decided no, I really liked it as it is. So I hope you like it too. If you do, give me a big old thumbs up. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button. And I really appreciate that you came by and watched this today. I hope that you'll come back tomorrow. All right, y'all. Thanks. Bye.